Here's Brody Brazil.
William Eklund's return to Sweden. This is not something I saw coming. I'll be honest, I was making YouTube videos about this. I was on television talking about this, and I never really had an official word or indication or lead. And sometimes I do. Full disclosure, there are some connections, some resources I have, some people I can ask, some text messages I could send and get answers back, or at least get indications or reads. I did not do it this time around with William Eklund. Leading into the 9-game limit, the 9-game mark, I kind of wanted to just go on gut instinct. And it seemed to me all indications were that he could hang at the NHL level. But the Sharks decided not just to discontinue him with San Jose, but also to send him back to Djurgardens in Sweden, his Swedish Hockey League team, instead of potentially keeping him local with the San Jose Barracuda at the AHL level if they thought it was best for him to develop there. But this caught me off guard. There's no question about it. It caught a lot of you off guard. And there was one comment that I continue to actually see. A lot of people say that the Sharks made this decision based on roster strategy, based on being cheap. Like, they're not trying to start William Eklund's clock in the NHL in terms of RFA versus unrestricted free agent status. And I'm just here to say, I think you've got it wrong if that is your belief. Now, again, a surprising decision, a difficult decision. Doug Wilson fully admitted that. In fact, he literally said this was one of the most difficult decisions I've ever had to make. But I think to assume that the Sharks wanted to move on from him for their own reasons was not it. I think they looked at William Eklund, and all of this in reverse. I think they looked at him and said, right now, things are going fine, but how does the season look for him at 19 years old, 45 games in? And once they commit to this, like, you're buying it. They had this almost luxury of the 9-game mark. And by the way, there's a reason that in the NHL they have this situation. It's only for 18 and 19-year-olds. It's only for the very youngest players, and you're trying to figure out, can they hang in there? Can they do this? He turned 19 a couple days before opening night. He played in 9 of the team's first 10 games, and right after that, they made the decision to send him back to Sweden. And I've got to say, watching his reaction personally, chip on the shoulder, emotionally distraught, all of the above. I don't think the young man's going to break, certainly right now, but I definitely think this got to him. This affected him. Now, it could be the chip on the shoulder that motivates him and inspires him and has him go over to Sweden and Djurgården and dominate. Like, if that is the case, and he comes back here looking like a Jonathan Dahlen, who, by the way, did this exact same thing. Played like 8 games with the Barracuda, said, I need more seasoning. Goes back to Europe, plays a season there, dominates, leads his team in goals, is the league's MVP. Oh, comes back to the Sharks this year, 6 goals in his first dozen games. It doesn't always work out that way. I fully recognize that. But giving this young man some more seasoning is probably what was realized. And again, to my eyes, it was like, hey, in the here and now, he's fine. But I will say, as you digest the long form of this in 82 games at 19 years old, and he'd already sat out. The game he missed was the second half of a back-to-back. So it's that right there in retrospect that leads me to believing that internally that was part of the decision-making process. But if you're one to say, and let me get to this now because this is kind of the main point, if you're one to say that, well, the Sharks only did this in their best interest and not his best interest, aren't they trying to win right now? This team is not trying to be, they are trying to be good 5 and 6 years down the road, no doubt. They're trying to set themselves up for that. But aren't they a little bit pressured right here and now to also win? They're not trying to tank this season. They need to win. They need to get back to the playoffs for business reasons, for competitive reasons, so that players want to stay reasons. Look, Doug Wilson has never had this franchise, and the franchise in 30 plus years has never missed the playoffs 3 years in a row. Don't you think there's a little bit of pressure on the head coach, on the GM, on the front office? on everybody surrounding this team to at least get back to that point? Have your ticket punched for the postseason? Of course. And if you thought that William Eklund was a good player and would help you in that, this almost goes against what they desperately need to do this year. So to have the criticism that, oh, this was, the team being thrifty, cheap, whatever you want to call it, I find that crazy and ridiculous, but I do hear that a lot, and I wanted to address that because, from my viewpoint, it couldn't be the opposite. This could have been a tool. If he's that valuable, and I think he was learning, and I think he would have been inconsistent this year, but you would have seen spurts. But if they thought he was valuable, why would they pass on that here and now if he could help here and now? They made this decision for him, and I actually truly commend that. That is a difficult thing to do in the moment. And again, with all of this, I can't say that I expected this to happen. I thought I'd be making William Eklund videos all season long with the Sharks, and we could follow his progress. I didn't expect any of this, and I hope he does well in Djurgarden and Sweden and be around his family and develop that much more. Certainly. Go crush it over there. I didn't understand a lot of it, or I didn't expect all of this, but I now kind of actually do understand it.